Right after my daughter left for a business trip, leaving behind my paralyzed grandson, something impossible happened. My grandson jumped up from his wheelchair and said, "Grandma, Mom wants to hurt you." I was shocked, staring at my 12-year-old grandson, the child I thought had been completely paralyzed for the past 7 months, standing firmly in front of me. That moment, I realized I had been living in a nightmare where my daughter was playing the role of the perfect child. Now I had to face the most painful choice of my life: send my own daughter to prison or let her go free. Welcome to Her Voice Narrative. Thank you for watching this video. Before I continue this story, please let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Subscribe to the channel if you know that. Never let pride, shame, or fear stop you from asking your family for help when you're in trouble. Also know that real family helps, fake pride destroys. Have you ever trusted someone completely only to discover they were not who you thought they were? This is my story, and it changed everything I believed about family and love. Let me take you back 8 months. The phone rang on a cold November evening while I was making tea in my kitchen. I had been living alone in my Portland home for 3 years since my husband Robert died from cancer. The caller ID showed a California number I did not recognize. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up.
"Mom."
The voice was barely a whisper, choked with tears. "Mom, it is me." My heart stopped. I had not heard my daughter Sarah speak to me in 14 years. Not since the day she married a man I warned her about. A man named David Morrison, who seemed charming on the surface, but had darkness in his eyes. "Sarah, what is wrong?" My hands were shaking. "You were right, Mom."
She was sobbing now.
"You were right about David. You were right about everything, and I did not listen. And now, Mom, I am so sorry. I need help.
Please."
She told me David had been hurting her for years, that she had hidden it because she was ashamed to admit I had been right. That 4 days ago he had hurt Jacob, their son, my grandson, so badly that the 12-year-old boy could not walk anymore, could not move at all below his neck. "The doctors say the damage might be permanent," she whispered. "The paralysis might be forever." The room spun around me. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. "Where are you now?" "Still in California. I left David, but I have nowhere to go. I know I said terrible things to you 14 years ago, Mom. I know I cut you out of my life. But I am scared, and I do not know who else to call." "Come home," I said firmly. "Both of you. Tonight. I will send you money for plane tickets right now." "Mom, are you sure? After everything I said to you? After keeping Jacob away from you all these years?" "Listen to me, Sarah. I was hurt for a long time. Hurt that you did not listen. That I lost 14 years with you and Jacob. But none of that matters now. You are my daughter.
Come home."
She cried so hard she could barely speak. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much." I hung up and immediately started making arrangements. Plane tickets, a car service from the airport, medical equipment for Jacob. My hands were shaking, but I moved fast. My daughter needed me. My grandson needed me. And I would not fail them this time. 2 days later, I stood at my front door watching a taxi pull into the driveway. The November sky was gray and heavy with rain. My heart pounded in my chest as the car door opened. Sarah stepped out first. She looked so much older than I remembered. Thinner, tired, dark circles under her eyes. But when she saw me, her face crumpled, and she started crying. Then I saw him. The driver was helping someone out of the other side. A boy in a wheelchair. My grandson, Jacob. The grandchild I had never been allowed to meet. He was small for 12. His body sat at an odd angle in the chair. His head tilted to one side, resting against a padded support because his neck could not hold itself straight. His arms lay lifeless in his lap, thin and pale. Everything about him seemed frozen, trapped in a body that no longer worked. But his eyes were alert and bright, dark brown like Sarah. They tracked my movement as I walked down the steps toward them. Those eyes seemed to see everything.
"Mom."
Sarah dropped her suitcase and ran to me. We held each other, and she sobbed against my shoulder. "I am so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry for everything. For keeping him from you. For not listening. For all of it. You're home now," I whispered. "Both of you. You're safe here." We stood there for a long moment. Sarah crying. Me holding her. Then she pulled back and wiped her eyes. Let me introduce you, she said softly. She wheeled Jacob closer, and I crouched down to be at his eye level. Up close I could see the freckles across his nose, the dark hair falling across his forehead. He looked so much like Sarah did at that age. Jacob, this is your grandmother. Grandma Eleanor. Hi, Jacob, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I have waited so long to meet you. He could not respond, could not nod or smile or reach out. But his eyes stayed locked on mine, steady and intense. And I had the strangest feeling that he was studying me, measuring me somehow. I reached out and carefully took his hand. It was cold and limp. No response at all. But I held it gently anyway. I am so glad you are here, I told him. I am going to take care of you both. I promise. Those dark eyes never left my face. Inside I showed them the rooms I had prepared. For Sarah, the guest bedroom on the second floor with clean sheets and fresh flowers. For Jacob, the first floor bedroom I had converted. Hospital bed with controls. Bathroom with a special shower. Everything he would need. Mom, this is too much, Sarah said, her voice breaking. It is not enough, I replied. But it is a start. That night after we had eaten a quiet dinner and Sarah had settled Jacob into bed, I stood in the hallway outside his room. The door was cracked open, and I could hear Sarah singing softly. A lullaby I remembered singing to her when she was small. Hush, little baby, do not say a word. Mama is going to buy you a mockingbird. Her voice was sweet and tender, full of love. I closed my eyes and felt warmth spread through my chest. This was what I had been missing for 14 years. This was family. Tomorrow we would start seeing specialists. Tomorrow we would begin helping Jacob heal, if healing was possible. But tonight, in this moment, I let myself feel something I had not felt in years. Hope. 3 weeks passed, and Sarah became everything I had once hoped she would be. She woke early every morning to make breakfast. She kept the house clean. She made sure I took my medications on time. She was attentive and caring in ways I had almost forgotten were possible. She hired a nurse too. Linda Chen, a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and 20 years of experience. Linda came 5 days a week to help with Jacob, bathing him, physical therapy exercises, all the care that came with someone who could not move on their own. Your daughter is wonderful with him, Linda told me one afternoon. Not every parent has that kind of patience. I nodded, feeling proud. Whatever mistakes Sarah had made, she was trying now. She was here, and that was what mattered. Every evening I would hear Sarah reading to Jacob. Stories about adventures and heroes. Her voice soft and steady. Sometimes I would stand in the hallway just to listen, remembering when I used to read to her the same way. One morning about 3 weeks in, Sarah brought me tea in my living room where I was reading the newspaper. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetie. I have been thinking. You are doing so much for me and Jacob, letting us stay here, paying for Linda, everything. And I want to help. I want to contribute somehow. I set down the newspaper. Sarah, you do not need to worry about that. I know, she said quickly. But I want to. You have that rental property business. 12 buildings across Portland. That is a lot for one person to manage, especially at your age. She stopped herself, but I knew what she meant. I was 65 years old. The business had been weighing on me more lately. With Sarah and Jacob here now, I had been thinking about slowing down, spending time with family instead of dealing with tenants and repairs. What did you have in mind? I asked. Just help with the paperwork, she said. Organizing files, reviewing contracts, maybe handling some of the day-to-day stuff. Nothing major. I used to work in property management, remember? I am good with details. It made sense. And more than that, it felt right. Like she was taking responsibility, trying to prove herself. All right, I said. I would appreciate the help. Her face lit up. Really? Really? I will show you where everything is. We can start tomorrow. That afternoon, I gave her a tour of my home office, showed her the filing system, explained the different properties and their managers. She asked smart questions, took notes. And when I handed her the keys to the filing cabinet where I kept financial records, she held them carefully. Thank you for trusting me, she said quietly. You are my daughter, I replied. Of course, I trust you. That night lying in bed, I thought about how much had changed in 3 weeks. The house felt alive again. There was laughter and conversation. Linda, cheerful greetings. Sarah, footsteps on the stairs. Jacob, presence brought purpose back to my days. I had gotten my daughter back after 14 years. She was here, and she was trying. Maybe I had been given a second chance to be the mother I should have been all along. I closed my eyes, feeling grateful. I had my family back. 3 months into the new year, things started to change. Not with Sarah or Jacob. With me. It began small. Forgetting where I put my reading glasses. Losing my train of thought mid-sentence. At 65, I expected some of that. But then came the dizzy spells. Sudden enough that I learned to sit down immediately when I felt one coming. The fatigue was crushing. Like walking through deep water just to get from my bedroom to the kitchen. And the memory problems got worse. I would have entire conversations with Sarah about the properties, making decisions about repairs or rent increases. And the next day, I would have no memory of what we discussed. You told me to approve the new roof on the Martin Street building, remember, Sarah would say, gently showing me my own signature on the paperwork. I did not remember. I did not remember a lot of things anymore. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just stress. The adjustment of having Sarah and Jacob in the house. The weight of managing 12 properties. But as January wore on, I could not ignore it. Some mornings I would wake up feeling drugged. My thoughts thick and slow. My body heavy. Despite Sarah's constant care, despite how attentive she had been, I felt like I was falling apart. Mom, you should see Dr. Martinez, Sarah suggested one morning after I nearly fell getting out of my chair. These dizzy spells are getting worse. She was right. I made the appointment that afternoon. Dr. Rachel Martinez had been my physician for 15 years. She was in her late 50s with gray hair and a calm manner that made you trust her. Tell me what has been going on, Eleanor, she said, settling into her chair. I described everything. The dizziness. The fatigue. The memory problems. As I talked, I watched her expression shift from interest to concern. How long has this been happening? Maybe 2 months. It is hard to say exactly when it started. She ran through the standard tests. Blood pressure, reflexes, cognitive tests. Then came more tests. Blood work, a CT scan, an MRI. I spent 3 days going from one test to another with Sarah driving me to each appointment. Holding my hand in waiting rooms. A week later, I sat in Dr. Martinez's office waiting for results. Everything came back normal, she said. And I should have felt relieved. But the look on her face told me she was puzzled. Your blood work is clean. The scans show no problems. Cognitively, you are testing fine. No signs of dementia or Alzheimer. Then what is wrong with me? She leaned back in her chair. Eleanor, you are 65 years old. You have been under significant stress. Your daughter coming back. Taking care of your grandson. Sometimes our bodies respond to stress in physical ways. My recommendation is to take it easy. Reduce your workload. Get more rest. It was not the answer I wanted, but it was the only one she had. That evening I sat in my living room staring at nothing and trying to process the doctor's words. Stress. Aging. Nothing serious. But why did it feel like I was losing pieces of myself? Mom. Sarah's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood in the doorway holding a cup of tea. Dr. Martinez called to check on you. She said you need to rest more. She crossed the room and set the tea on the table beside me. Chamomile. My favorite. Thank you, sweetheart, I said, taking the cup. The warmth felt good in my hands. You need to take care of yourself, she said softly. Her hand on my shoulder. We need you, Mom. Jacob and I. We need you healthy. I looked up at her, at the concern in her eyes, and felt grateful that despite everything I was not facing this alone. I raised the cup to my lips and drank. A month later, I woke to the familiar sound of my bedroom door opening softly. Through the early morning light, I watched Sarah enter carrying a tray with my tea. Hot with honey. Exactly how I always took it. Good morning, Mom, she said, setting the tray on my nightstand with a gentle smile. This had become our routine. Every morning for the past month, Sarah would bring me tea before I had even gotten out of bed. At first, I found it touching. My daughter taking care of me the way I had once taken care of her. But lately, I had begun to notice things. I reached for the cup and my hand trembled. Not much. Just a slight shake that made the tea slosh. I had never had tremors before. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, concern on her face. "Just a little shaky in the mornings," I said, forcing a smile. Nothing to worry about. But it was something to worry about. The symptoms Dr. Martinez could not explain had become my new normal. The constant fatigue. The mental fog that never quite lifted. And now this. My hands, which had once been steady, now trembled when I reached for a simple cup of tea. One morning about a week after the tremors started, I woke earlier than usual. Sarah had not come in yet. I lay there staring at the ceiling and realized something. My head felt clear. Not perfectly clear. I was still tired, but clearer than it had been in weeks. My thoughts moved at a normal pace. The fog had lifted slightly. 20 minutes later, Sarah arrived with the tea. "You are up early," she said, surprised. "Could not sleep," I lied. I took the cup from her, thanked her, and after she left, I set it on the nightstand. I did not drink it. I told myself I was not thirsty yet, that I would have it later. But really, I wanted to see what would happen if I did not. By mid-morning, I felt more alert than I had in months. My mind was sharper. The tremor in my hands had lessened. It was subtle, but it was there. An undeniable difference.
The tea.
The thought came, and I immediately pushed it away. That was ridiculous. Sarah had been nothing but devoted since she came home. She had given up her life in California to take care of me and Jacob. The tea was her way of showing love. That was all. But the thought would not leave me alone. That afternoon, I called Dr. Martinez. "I want to run another test," I told her. "Check for I do not know anything unusual." "Eleanor, we have run every test available. Everything came back clean." "I know," but I hesitated. How could I say this without sounding crazy? "Could you check for substances? Anything that might be causing these symptoms?" There was a pause. "You think someone is? Are you suggesting something intentional?" "No," I said quickly.
No, nothing like that.
"I just want to be thorough." She agreed, and I went in for more blood work. 3 days later, she called with results. "Everything is negative," she said. "No toxins. No unusual substances. Whatever is causing your symptoms, it is not coming from outside sources." I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt guilty for even suspecting. Sarah had sacrificed so much to be here. How could I repay her love with suspicion? That evening, I sat in Jacob's room while Sarah prepared dinner downstairs. He was in his wheelchair by the window, and I had pulled a chair up beside him. "Your mom takes good care of both of us," I said, more to myself than to him. Jacob did not respond. He could not. But I noticed something odd. His eyes, which had been looking out the window, shifted to the doorway. Following his gaze, I caught a glimpse of Sarah in the hallway. Her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice too low to hear. When she saw me looking, she smiled and waved before disappearing down the stairs. I looked back at Jacob. His eyes were still fixed on the empty doorway, and there was something in his expression I could not quite read. If I had known what that morning would bring, I would have paid more attention to the way he watched her when she thought no one was looking. The next morning, when Sarah brought me tea, I thanked her with a smile and raised the cup to my lips. I drank. A week later, Sarah came to me with news that should have felt routine, but somehow did not. "Mom, I need to fly to Los Angeles tomorrow," she said over breakfast. "My lawyer needs me to sign some final paperwork for the divorce." "Marcus Flynn?" I asked, remembering the name from previous conversations.
Yes.
"He has been handling everything with David. Custody arrangements for Jacob. Division of assets. There are just a few things that need my signature in person." It made sense. Divorces were complicated, especially ones involving a child and abuse allegations. Still, something about the timing felt off, though I could not put my finger on why. What happened next, however, could not be explained away. That afternoon, Linda came to the house, as usual, for her shift with Jacob. But instead of going to his room, Sarah met her at the door. I was in my bedroom when I heard their voices. Linda confused. Sarah firm but apologetic. When I came out to the hallway, I found Linda standing there with her bag, looking stunned. "I am sorry," Linda, Sarah was saying. "With Mom medical bills and everything we need to cut costs, I can handle Jacob care myself." But Linda looked at me, then back at Sarah. "I thought Miss Eleanor was covering my salary. I did not realize finances were tight." "It is fine," Sarah said quickly. "We will call you if anything changes." After Linda left, I stood in the hallway trying to process what just happened. Cut costs. I owned 12 rental properties across Portland worth millions of dollars. Linda's salary was nothing compared to my monthly income. And more importantly, Sarah had been grateful for Linda's help with Jacob. Why would she suddenly fire her? An hour later, my phone rang. "Linda." "Miss Eleanor, I am sorry to bother you," she said, her voice tight with worry. "But I needed to tell you. Something about today felt wrong. Very wrong. I cannot explain it, but in my 20 years of nursing you develop instincts about these things. Please just be careful. Watch after yourself and that sweet boy." "Linda, what are you saying?" "I do not know. I truly do not. But something is not right in that house. I felt it today, and I have been feeling it for weeks." She hung up before I could press her further. I sat in my living room for a long time after that call, turning her words over in my mind. What had she sensed? What had I been missing? That evening I had a meeting at one of my downtown properties, the Riverside Apartments. I was early, so I stopped in the lobby to check on some maintenance work. That is when I saw them. Sarah and a man I did not recognize sitting in the corner near the windows. He was about 40, wearing an expensive suit, his dark hair graying at the temples. Professional.
Polished.
They were leaning close together, speaking in low voices. And when Sarah laughed at something he said, she touched his arm in a way that was far too familiar. I watched from across the lobby, partially hidden by a large plant. The man said something else, and Sarah's expression changed. Became serious. Almost calculating. She glanced around as if checking to see if anyone was watching, then pulled out her phone and showed him something on the screen. Marcus Flynn. It had to be. I saw the way she looked at him. Not the way a client looks at her attorney, but the way a woman looks at a man she is involved with. There was an ease between them, a chemistry that made my stomach turn. When had she told me Marcus was coming to Portland? She had not. She said she was flying to Los Angeles to meet him. So why was he here in my building meeting with my daughter in secret? I left before they could see me, my mind racing. The pieces were there, scattered and incomplete, but they were starting to form a picture I did not want to see. Linda firing. The secretive meeting. The way Sarah had been so eager to help with my business affairs, to get access to my financial records. She was planning something. Something that involved everything I had built. But what? That night, I barely slept. At 4:30 in the morning, I heard Sarah moving around downstairs getting ready for her flight. At 5, a car arrived to take her to the airport. She came to my room to say goodbye, kissing my forehead. "I will call you when I land," she promised.
"Take care of yourself, Mom.
"And keep an eye on Jacob for me."
"I will," I said.
I watched from my window as the car pulled away, brake lights disappearing into the darkness. And I wondered what she was really going to do in Los Angeles. That night, Thursday night before Sarah left for Los Angeles, I could not sleep. I lay in bed for hours staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the scene from the lobby. Sarah, hand on Marcus' arm. The calculating look on her face. Linda warning echoing in my head. Something is not right in that house. At midnight, I gave up trying to sleep. I pulled on my robe and slippers and made my way downstairs, moving quietly so I would not wake Sarah or Jacob. I was not sure where I was going at first. The kitchen, maybe for some water. But my feet carried me past the kitchen, through the mudroom, to the door that led to the garage. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the doorknob. What was I looking for? What did I expect to find? I did not know. But the anxiety that had been building all day, all week, really had reached a point where I needed to do something. I opened the door and flipped on the garage lights. The space looked normal. Sarah's black Honda sat in its usual spot on the left. My own car, a silver Toyota, sat on the right. Tools hung neatly on the wall. Storage boxes lined the shelves. Everything looked fine. But something made me walk over to the wall where the carbon monoxide detectors were mounted. We had two. One near the door to the house. One near the garage door opener. Basic safety equipment I had installed years ago. I reached up and pressed the test button on the first one. Nothing. I pressed it again. Still nothing. No beep. No flashing light. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I moved to the second detector and pressed its test button. Nothing. I pulled the first detector off the wall and opened the battery compartment. Empty. Completely empty. I checked the second one. Also empty. Both carbon monoxide detectors had been disabled. My hands were shaking as I stood there holding the useless devices. When had this happened? Who had done it? The batteries did not just fall out on their own. Someone had deliberately removed them from both detectors.
But why?
I set the detectors on a workbench and looked around the garage again, this time more carefully. My eyes landed on Sarah Honda. Had I heard the engine running earlier? No, that was impossible. The garage had been quiet all evening. I walked over to the car, running my hand along its smooth surface. As I moved toward the rear, something caught my eye near the exhaust pipe. I crouched down, my knees protesting, and squinted in the dim light. There was a rubber hose. A flexible one, maybe 2 inches wide, connected to something near the exhaust. But the light was poor, and from my angle I could not see where it led or what it was attached to. It looked wrong, out of place. But in the shadows and my exhausted state, I could not make sense of it. I straightened up, my mind foggy with fatigue and confusion. Maybe it was something Sarah had added for the car. Some kind of repair. I was not a mechanic. I did not know what modern cars needed. I would ask her about it in the morning. And about the detector batteries. There had to be a reasonable explanation. I took one last look around the garage, but whatever clarity I had been seeking had not come. If anything, I felt more unsettled than before. I turned off the lights and went back inside, locking the door behind me. Back in my bedroom, I climbed into bed and closed my eyes, but sleep would not come. My mind kept circling back to those empty battery compartments, to that strange rubber hose, to the way Sarah had looked at Marcus Flynn. Something is not right in that house. Linda words. I must have dozed off eventually, because the next thing I knew, gray dawn light was filtering through my curtains. I heard sounds downstairs. Sarah moving around, getting ready for her flight. I thought about going down, about asking her about the garage, about the detectors. But what would I say? Why did you remove the batteries from the carbon monoxide detectors? It sounded accusatory, suspicious. And what if there was a perfectly innocent explanation? What if I was letting Linda worry, and my own exhaustion turned me paranoid? I stayed in bed listening to the sounds of Sarah preparing to leave. At 4:30, I heard her footsteps on the stairs. At 5, I heard a car door close. An engine start. Tires on gravel. By the time I got up and looked out the window, she was gone. And I never got to ask her about what I found in the garage. The next morning, I woke at 7 to pale morning light. My head felt heavy. My thoughts still tangled in what I had found in the garage. Those empty battery compartments. That strange rubber hose I could not make sense of in the dark. I should have felt worse after barely sleeping. But there was a clarity to my exhaustion. A sharpness that cut through the fog that had been clouding my mind for weeks. Maybe it was the tea. Or rather the lack of it. Sarah was not here to bring me my morning cup. I was still in bed staring at the ceiling when my phone rang. Sarah number. Mom, did I wake you? No, I am up. I sat up slowly, rubbing my face. You made it to Los Angeles okay?
Just got to the hotel.
Listen, Mom, I need to ask you something. Her voice had that worried edge. I have this feeling that something is wrong with my car. Could you check it for me? I frowned. What kind of something? I do not know exactly.
It just does not feel right.
Maybe you could start the engine. See if it runs okay. I thought about the rubber hose I had seen last night. The one I had meant to ask her about. This could be related. Or it could be nothing.
Sure, I said. I can do that.
Thank you, Mom. I really appreciate it. Just let it run for a minute and make sure everything sounds normal. She hung up before I could mention what I found in the garage. I got dressed, slowly, my mind turning over the request. It was reasonable enough. Maybe she had noticed something wrong with the car before she left. Still, something about it felt off. I made my way downstairs and through the mudroom to the garage. The morning light filtered weakly through the high windows, and I could see my breath in the cold air. I walked over to Sarah Honda. The keys were in the small box she kept by the door. I found them, unlocked the car, and slid into the driver's seat. The interior smelled like her perfume. For a moment, I just sat there, my hands on the steering wheel, remembering teaching her to drive. How proud I had been. I inserted the key and turned it. The engine purred to life immediately.
Smooth.
Quiet. Normal. I let it idle, listening for any unusual sounds. Knocking. Rattling. Anything that would explain why she felt something was wrong. Nothing. The car sounded fine. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds. Waiting. Listening. That is when I noticed the smell. Not just perfume anymore. Something else. Something faint and wrong. My chest felt tight. I reached for the key to turn off the engine, but my hand was shaking. My vision blurred at the edges. The garage seemed to tilt. And then I remembered. The carbon monoxide detectors. Both of them. Empty battery compartments. The rubber hose by the exhaust. This was not about checking the car. This was a trap. I yanked at the door handle, stumbling out of the car, but my legs would not hold me. I fell to my knees on the concrete floor, gasping for air that did not seem to help. The garage walls swam around me.
The door.
I had to get to the door. I crawled toward the garage door, my vision darkening. I reached for the wall where I knew the button was. The one that would open the door and let in fresh air. I pressed it. Nothing happened. I pressed it again and again. The door did not move. I looked up at the emergency release. The red handle that hung from the garage door mechanism. If the automatic opener failed, you could pull that handle and open the door manually. But as my eyes focused, I saw that the rope had been cut. Not frayed. Not broken. Cut clean through, leaving just a short stub dangling useless above my head. Someone had made sure I could not get out. The last thing I remember thinking before the darkness pulled me under was her name. Sarah. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the driveway outside the garage. Someone was kneeling beside me. I blinked, trying to focus. My head pounding. My lungs burning.
Grandma.
A voice. Young.
Scared.
Jacob. But Jacob could not move. Jacob could not speak clearly. Jacob was paralyzed. I turned my head and saw him.
Really saw him.
My 12-year-old grandson was crouched beside me, his hands on my shoulders, his face tight with worry. He was not in his wheelchair. He was not slumped at an awkward angle. He was kneeling on the ground, supporting my weight, perfectly capable of movement. Grandma, he said again, and his voice was clear and strong.
Can you hear me?
I stared at him, unable to process what I was seeing. You're not. I could not finish the sentence. I need to tell you the truth, Jacob said, his dark eyes meeting mine. I am not paralyzed. I never was. I have been pretending for 8 months to protect you from her. The world tilted again. But this time it had nothing to do with carbon monoxide. What I whispered. Mom tried to kill you just now, he said. And this was not the first time she tried. We need to call the police. But first I need you to understand everything. We sat in the living room as morning light filtered through the windows. My hands still trembled. The smell of exhaust clung to my clothes, and every breath reminded me how close I had come to dying. Jacob sat across from me, no longer in his wheelchair. His legs worked fine. His neck was not crooked. He looked like any 12-year-old boy except for the tears streaming down his face. I am so sorry, Grandma, he whispered. I wanted to speak, but my throat was too tight. I just waited. Mom told me I had to pretend, Jacob said, his voice breaking. She said if I did not help her, she would leave me. That she could not do this alone. That you did not care about us, and we had to take care of ourselves. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I believed her at first. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe we really needed to do this. Do what I managed to ask. Jacob looked down at his hands. She did not tell me everything. Not at first. She just said I had to pretend to be paralyzed, so you would feel sorry for us.
So you would let us stay.
My chest tightened. When did you find out? October, he said quietly. I started hearing things. Late at night when she thought I was asleep. She would talk on the phone to Marcus about money, about a $20 million life insurance policy. The number hit me like a physical blow. I did not understand at first, Jacob continued. But then I heard them talking about making it look like an accident. About carbon monoxide.
About you.
He pulled something from his pocket. An old smartphone. The screen cracked. I bought this with my allowance money, he said. I started recording everything. Every phone call I could hear. Every conversation when they thought I was not listening. I took pictures of text messages when Mom left her phone on the counter. He handed me the phone. Everything is here, Grandma. All the proof we need. I stared at the device in my hand. The screen showed a list of audio files, photos, text message screenshots, months of evidence. She was going to kill you this morning, Jacob said, his voice barely above a whisper. That is why she called about the car. She wanted you in the garage with the engine running. She had already set everything up. The rubber hose, I said. Jacob nodded. She connected it from the exhaust pipe to the cabin air intake. When you started the engine, carbon monoxide would pump directly into the car. And she disabled the detectors so nothing would warn you. I felt sick. The garage door was locked from the outside, Jacob continued. She did that before she left. You were not supposed to be able to get out.
How did you know? I asked.
How did you know it was happening? I heard the engine, he said. It had been running too long, and I knew. I knew this was the day.
So I ran down.
I used the emergency release to open the garage door. I pulled you out. Tears were rolling down his cheeks again. I am sorry I did not tell you sooner. I was scared. I thought maybe Mom would change her mind. Maybe she would not really go through with it. But she did. And I could not let her kill you. His voice broke completely. Even if it means I lose her forever. I set the phone down and pulled Jacob into my arms.
He sobbed against my chest.
This boy who had been forced to choose between his mother and his grandmother. Who had been manipulated and used. Who had still found the courage to do the right thing. You did the right thing, I whispered. You saved my life. We sat like that for several minutes. Outside, Portland morning traffic hummed in the distance. Inside, everything had changed. Finally, I pulled back and looked at Jacob. Then I looked at the phone in my hand. At the evidence of my daughter's betrayal. At proof of conspiracy to commit murder. I thought about Sarah. In Los Angeles right now. Probably thinking her plan had worked. Probably already planning how she would react when she got the news of my accident. And I looked at Jacob. At this brave boy who had been caught in the middle of something terrible.
We need to call the police, I said. Right now.
My daughter tried to kill me this morning. The words felt unreal coming out of my mouth, but Detective Maria Lopez's voice on the other end of the line stayed calm and professional. Miss Eleanor, I am going to need you to stay exactly where you are. Do not touch anything in the garage. I will be there in 15 minutes. I hung up and immediately dialed another number. Thomas Wright had managed my rental properties for 15 years. If anyone would come without questions, it was him. Thomas, the first need you to bring me some documents. The life insurance policy Sarah had me sign 7 months ago. Everything related to it. Can you be here in 30 minutes? Of course, Miss Eleanor. Is everything all right? No, I said. But it will be. At 9:15, Detective Lopez arrived. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a dark blazer and carried a leather bag. When she shook my hand, her grip was firm. Show me everything, she said. We sat in the living room. Jacob, the detective,
and me.
Morning light streamed through the windows, making the whole scene feel surreal. I started at the beginning. 14 years of distance. Sarah returned 7 months ago with Jacob in a wheelchair. My symptoms starting in January. This morning, trap in the garage. Detective Lopez took notes without interrupting. Her expression never changed. When I finished, she turned to Jacob. You have evidence. Jacob handed her the phone. His hands shook slightly. Detective Lopez scrolled through the text messages first. I watched her face as she read. Her jaw tightened. 20 million is worth the wait, she read aloud. That is from Sarah to Marcus Flynn. Yes, Jacob said quietly. From 2 months ago. Detective Lopez clicked on the first audio file. Sarah's voice filled the room, and I felt sick all over again. We will make it look like an accident. Carbon monoxide poisoning is perfect. Everyone will think it was the old house. Faulty detectors. Tragic, but natural. Marcus' voice responded. And you are sure the insurance will pay out? Positive. 20 million. Then we will finally be free. The recording ended. Detective Lopez's expression had hardened. How many of these are there, she asked. 15, Jacob said. From October until last week. Detective Lopez continued through the evidence. Marcus Flynn's search history showed queries for carbon monoxide poisoning symptoms. How long does carbon monoxide take to kill? Home, undetectable poisons. Then came the photos. Jacob had taken them through his bedroom window. Shots of Sarah in the garage late at night installing the rubber hose that connected the exhaust to the cabin air intake. The timestamps showed she had done it 3 days ago. There is more, Jacob said. He pulled up a series of screenshots. Mom bought lorazepam online using a fake name. That is what she was putting in grandma tea. Detective Lopez zoomed in on one of the screenshots. Jennifer Walsh had purchased 60 tablets of lorazepam from an online pharmacy, shipped to a post office box in Portland. The symptoms started in January, I said. Dizziness.
Fatigue.
Memory problems. My doctor ran tests, but everything came back normal. Because she was not testing for benzodiazepines, Detective Lopez said. She was drugging you slowly, making you think you were losing your mind. The pieces were falling into place, but each revelation made me feel sicker. Detective Lopez stood. I need to see the garage. We went down together. The smell of exhaust still lingered. Detective Lopez examined the carbon monoxide detectors mounted on the walls. Both of them hung open. Batteries removed. She crouched beside the Honda, studying the rubber hose still attached to the exhaust pipe. She took photos with her phone, documenting everything. This is attempted murder, she said flatly. Premeditated. Planned over months. The drugging. The fake disability story. The insurance policy. She built an entire alibi. What happens now, I asked. Now we make sure she cannot run. We returned to the living room just as Thomas Wright arrived. He carried a briefcase and looked worried. Miss Eleanor, thank you for coming, Thomas. I took the briefcase. This is Detective Lopez. She needs to see the insurance documents. Thomas handed everything over without questions. I would tell him the full story later. Detective Lopez spread the papers across the coffee table. The life insurance policy was dated 7 months ago, right when Sarah had returned. $20 million. Sarah was listed as the sole beneficiary. She had you sign this, Detective Lopez asked. She said it was just updating my estate planning. I did not think anything of it. Detective Lopez made more notes. She has been planning this since the day she came back. We spent the next hour going through every detail. Detective Lopez wanted timelines.
Dates.
Witnesses. I told her about Linda Chin, the nurse Sarah had fired last week.
Can you call her? Detective Lopez asked.
We will need her testimony about Sarah's behavior. I dialed Linda number. She answered on the second ring. Miss Eleanor, is everything okay? I have been worried. Linda, I need you to do something for me. Something important. I explained what had happened. There was a long silence. I knew something was wrong, Linda finally said. The way she was always hovering around you, watching everything you ate and drank, and firing me right before this trip to Los Angeles. It felt calculated. Will you testify to that? Absolutely. Whatever you need. After I hung up, Detective Lopez leaned back in her chair. Here is what is going to happen. When Sarah calls from Los Angeles, you're going to act like nothing is wrong.
Tell her you are fine.
Everything is normal. Do not let her know we are on to her. You want her to come back? Jacob asked. I want her to think she got away with it, Detective Lopez said. When she returns to Portland, we will arrest her. If we move too soon, her lawyer will argue she was just traveling. But if she comes back expecting to find you dead, or dying, that is when we have her. My stomach turned. You want me to pretend my daughter did not just try to murder me? I want you to help me put her in prison for the rest of her life, Detective Lopez said. Her voice was hard but not unkind.
Can you do that?
I looked at Jacob, this brave boy who had been manipulated and used, who had saved my life this morning. Yes, I said. I can do that. Detective Lopez stood and collected her notes. I will have officers watching the house. Plain clothes. Unmarked cars. The moment Sarah returns to Portland, we move. Until then, business as usual. She paused at the door. Miss Eleanor, your daughter is dangerous. Do not underestimate her. If she suspects anything, she will run. I understand. After Detective Lopez left Jacob, and I sat in silence. The house felt different now, like a stage set waiting for the final act. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Meeting's going well. Miss you both. Home tomorrow. I stared at the message. So casual. So loving. As if she had not left me to die in a garage full of carbon monoxide just hours ago. I typed back. Glad to hear it. See you soon. Jacob watched me. What do we do now? Now, I said. We wait for your mother to come home. At 3 p.m, my phone rang. I stared at the screen. Sarah's name glowed in white letters. Jacob sat across from me in his wheelchair. Back in the prison he had escaped from this morning. We had been preparing for this call all day, but now that it was here, my hands shook. I took a deep breath and answered. Hi, sweetheart.
Mom.
Her voice was bright.
Warm. Concerned.
How are you feeling? I have been thinking about you all day. I forced a cough, made my voice thin and tired. I am okay. Just a little worn out. You know how it is. Have you been resting? She asked. I worry about you pushing yourself too hard. Every word felt like walking through a minefield. I had to sound weak, but not alarming. Tired, but not dying yet. I have been resting, I said. Jacob has been keeping me company. That is good. Is he there?
Can I talk to him?
I handed Jacob the phone. He had been practicing all morning, but I saw the fear in his eyes as he raised it to his ear.
Hi, Mom, he said.
His voice small and fragile. I miss you. I miss you too, baby. Are you being good for Grandma? Yes, Mom. And you are comfortable. You have everything you need. Yes. I just wish you were here. The lie came so easily from him. I wondered how many times he had to lie for her before. Sarah's voice softened. I will be home soon. I promise. Let me talk to your grandma again. Okay. Jacob handed the phone back. His hands were shaking.
Mom.
Sarah's tone shifted slightly. Has anything unusual happened? This was it. The real test. Unusual, I said.
No.
Nothing unusual. Why do you ask? Oh, no reason. I just want to make sure you are both okay while I am away. My grip tightened on the phone. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her I knew everything. About Marcus. About the $20 million. About the carbon monoxide trap she left me in this morning. But instead I made my voice gentle. We're fine, honey. Just missing you. I miss you too, Mom. I closed my eyes. Imagine her in some Los Angeles hotel room. Probably lying on a bed, looking out at the city lights. She thought she had won. She thought I was slowly dying. Confused and weak. Maybe already planning my funeral in her head. She thought by the time she came back I would be gone. Another tragic accident. An old woman in an old house with faulty carbon monoxide detectors. The anger burned in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. How are your meetings going? I asked. Oh, they are fine. The divorce paperwork is almost done. She paused. Actually, Mom, I am thinking of coming home early. Tonight, maybe. My heart jumped. Tonight. Do not rush on our account. Jacob and I are managing just fine. Please do not rush, I thought. Please give the police time to prepare. Are you sure? I feel bad leaving you alone when you are not feeling well. I am sure. Take care of your business. We will be here when you get back. Another pause. Longer this time. Mommy would tell me if something was wrong, would not you? The question hung in the air. I heard the edge in her voice. Suspicion, maybe. Or just paranoia. She was testing me one more time. Of course I would, I said. But there is nothing wrong.
Just take your time.
Okay. Her voice relaxed. I love you, Mom. The words were like knives. I love you too, sweetheart. The line went dead. I set the phone down carefully, as if it might explode. My whole body was shaking. Jacob was staring at me. His face pale. Did I do okay? He whispered. You did perfect. We sat in silence. I had not realized how exhausting it would be. Pretending to be weak. Pretending to trust her. Pretending everything was normal when my daughter had tried to murder me just hours ago. Jacob climbed out of the wheelchair and sat beside me on the couch.
We did not speak. What was there to say?
My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Lopez. Subject has booked United Flight 1847. Departing Los Angeles at 8 tonight. Arriving Portland at 10:15. Officers in position. Proceed as planned. I checked the time. 3:30. In less than 7 hours, Sarah would be back in Portland. In less than 7 hours, the police would arrest my daughter for attempted murder. I showed Jacob the message. He read it without expression. What happens when she comes home, he asked. The police will be waiting. They will arrest her at the airport or here at the house. Detective Lopez will decide. Will she go to prison?
Yes.
He nodded slowly. Good. But his voice broke on the word, and I realized he was crying. This brave boy who had saved my life, who had gathered evidence for months, who had just performed flawlessly on that phone call. He was still 12 years old, and he just helped send his mother to prison. I pulled him close. I am sorry you had to do this.
It is not your fault, he said.
It is hers. He was right, but it did not make it any easier. We sat together as the afternoon light faded. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. Every minute brought us closer to the moment when everything would change.
My phone buzzed again.
Another text from Detective Lopez. Stay alert. If she calls again, same performance. Do not let your guard down. I typed back. Understood. Jacob looked up at me. What do we do now? I glanced at the clock. 4. 6 hours until Sarah flight. 8 hours until she would be back in Portland. Now I said, we wait. But this time we were not waiting helplessly. This time we had the police on our side. This time we had evidence. This time Sarah was walking into a trap of her own making. I thought about her text from this morning. Meeting's going well. Miss you both. Home tomorrow. Tomorrow had become tonight. The flight landed at 10 Friday night. I stood at the living room window watching the driveway. Jacob sat in his wheelchair beside me. Both of us back in our roles. At 10:30, headlights swept across the front of the house. Sarah came through the door with her suitcase and a bright smile.
Mom.
She dropped her bag and hurried to embrace me.
You look exhausted.
Have you been resting? I let my body sag against her. Made my breathing shallow. I am okay. Just tired. Her hand pressed against my back, and I wondered if she was checking for a pulse. Estimating how much longer I had.
We need to get you to Dr. Martinez, she said.
I will make an appointment for Monday morning.
That is not necessary, I said.
I insist. Her voice was firm. You do not look well at all, Mom. Dr. Martinez will figure out what is wrong. Because you have been poisoning me, I thought. But I just nodded weakly. That weekend was the longest 2 days of my life. Saturday morning, Sarah made tea. I watched her measure the leaves. Add the water. Pour the dark liquid into my favorite mug. She brought it to me with a concerned smile. Drink up, Mom. You need your strength. I raised the cup to my lips, pretended to sip, and set it down. When she left the room, I poured it into the plant by the window. Every cup she made I disposed of the same way. By Sunday, that plant was probably dying too. Through it all, I knew the police were watching. Detective Lopez had set up surveillance in the house across the street. Officers in plain clothes. Cameras pointed at every entrance. Detective Lopez texted me updates throughout the weekend. Officers in position. Subject has not left the property. Stay alert. But on Saturday night, Sarah did leave. At 11, she told me she was going for a drive to clear her head. I watched from my bedroom window as she got into her Honda. 20 minutes later, another car pulled up 2 blocks away. A black BMW. Marcus Flynn. Jacob had planted a listening device in Sarah's car 3 days ago when we first started building the case. Sunday morning, he brought me his phone with the recording queued up. I pressed play. Marcus' voice came through first. Why is she not dead yet? The lorazepam is not working fast enough, Sarah replied. She is more resistant than I thought. We cannot wait much longer. Every day increases the risk. I know. A pause. Monday I will finish it.
How?
I made an appointment with Dr. Martinez for 9 in the morning. I will drive her there. On the way back, I will give her a heavy dose. Enough to knock her out. Then I will stage a car accident. Single vehicle collision. Elderly driver with medical issues. It will look completely natural. My hands shook as I held the phone. Even knowing what she was capable of. Hearing her plan my death so casually made my stomach turn. Marcus' voice. And you are sure this will work? It has to. I have already waited too long. Another pause. After Monday it is done. 20 million, Marcus. We just have to be patient for one more day. The recording ended. Jacob watched my face. What do we do? I looked at the timestamp. 11:47 Saturday night. Less than 36 hours until Monday morning.
We tell Detective Lopez, I said.
And we set a trap. Sunday passed in painful slow motion. I continued my performance.
Weak. Confused.
Declining. Sarah hovered constantly, watching me with those calculating eyes. She made more tea. I poured away. She suggested I rest. I pretended to sleep while listening to her move through the house. That evening she cooked dinner.
Soup.
She said it was good for my strength. I ate a few spoonfuls and claimed I was too tired for more. She looked disappointed. You need to eat, Mom. How are you going to get better if you do not eat? I am not supposed to get better, I thought. I am supposed to die. After she went to bed, I sent Detective Lopez a detailed message. Dr. Martinez office Monday 9. She plans to drug me heavily on the drive home and stage a car accident. We can catch her in the act. Detective Lopez's response came within minutes. Understood. Officers will follow at a distance. We will intervene before she can hurt you. Do not get in that car with her alone. We will have someone pose as Dr. Martinez's nurse. You will be protected. I read the message 3 times. Tomorrow this would finally be over. Tomorrow Sarah would be arrested. Tomorrow Jacob and I could stop pretending. I walked to Jacob's room. He was still awake staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I said quietly. He nodded. I am scared. Me too. What if something goes wrong? I sat on the edge of his bed. Detective Lopez knows what she is doing. We will be safe. Will Mom go to prison?
Yes.
He was quiet for a long moment. Good, he finally whispered. But his eyes filled with tears. I stayed with him until he fell asleep, then returned to my room. Through the wall I could hear Sarah moving around, probably checking that I was still breathing, still alive enough to collect the insurance money tomorrow. I lay in bed and watched the clock. 11:47. In less than 10 hours, I would be sitting in Dr. Martinez's office. In less than 11 hours, Sarah would try to kill me one final time. And the police would be waiting. I picked up my phone and texted Detective Lopez one more message. 9 tomorrow morning. Dr. Martinez's office. She will be there. The response was immediate. We will be ready. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. One more night. One more performance. One more day of pretending my daughter loved me instead of wanting me dead. Monday morning, Sarah drove me to Dr. Martinez's office. I sat in the passenger seat watching her hands on the steering wheel. The same hands that had poisoned my tea for 4 months. Disabled carbon monoxide detectors. Installed a rubber hose to kill me. She chatted pleasantly about the weather. About Jacob's physical therapy schedule. About maybe taking a family vacation when I felt better. I said nothing. In 15 minutes this would all be over. The medical building stood in downtown Portland. Glass and steel reflecting the gray morning sky. Sarah found a parking spot and came around to help me out. I let her take my arm as we walked across the lot. You're doing great, Mom, she murmured. Dr. Martinez will figure out what is wrong. She already knows what is wrong, I thought. You are the cause. The waiting room was empty except for the receptionist. One of Detective Lopez's officers, most likely. She smiled and gestured toward the chairs. We sat together. Sarah's hand resting on mine. I am so glad we are getting you checked out, she said. I have been so worried. I looked at her face. She seemed genuinely concerned, genuinely loving. If I did not know better, I would believe her completely. That was the most terrifying part. How easily she lied. How naturally the performance came. Miss Eleanor. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway. Please come in. Both of you. We followed her into the examination room. The same room I had been in dozens of times. Sarah helped me onto the table, her hand on my shoulder. The devoted daughter. The perfect performance. Dr. Martinez pulled up her stool. But before she could speak, Sarah launched into her prepared speech. Doctor, I am really worried about my mother. She has been so weak lately. Forgetting things. Having dizzy spells. This morning she could barely. The door opened. Detective Lopez stepped in, followed by 3 uniformed police officers. Sarah's voice died mid-sentence. The color drained from her face. I stood up from the examination table. No trembling. No weakness. No confusion. I looked directly at my daughter. Sarah, I said quietly. The lorazepam you have been putting in my tea for 4 months. The carbon monoxide trap in the garage. Your plan with Marcus Flynn to make it look like an accident and collect $20 million.
Mom.
Her voice was barely a whisper. Detective Lopez stepped forward. Sarah Miller, you are under arrest for attempted murder in the 1st degree, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud. She read the Miranda rights while 2 officers moved to either side of Sarah. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The handcuffs clicked shut around Sarah's wrists. That is when she broke.
No.
She lunged toward me, but the officers held her back. Mom, please.
You do not understand.
I never meant. I did not. Tears streamed down her face. I love you, Mom. I love you. Please do not do this. I watched her sob. Watched her performance shift from devoted daughter to desperate criminal. And felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just a vast, empty coldness. Miss Miller, you need to come with us, now one of the officers said.
Mom.
She was screaming now, fighting against them as they guided her toward the door.
Please.
You are my mother.
How can you do this to me?
Because you tried to murder me, I thought. Because you poisoned my tea and trapped me in a garage and planned my death. Because you used your own son. Because you are my daughter, and you wanted me dead. But I said nothing. I just watched. Detective Lopez's phone rang. She answered, listened briefly, then turned to me. Marcus Flynn has been arrested at his law office, she said. Officers caught him trying to delete files from his computer. Emails between him and your daughter discussing the insurance policy. The timeline. Everything. We have him. I nodded.
Good.
Both of them caught. Sarah was at the door now. Still crying. Still calling my name. She looked back one final time. Her face red and swollen with tears. I am your daughter, she whispered. Does that not mean anything to you? For a moment, just a moment, I saw the little girl she had been. The child who used to sit on my lap and beg for bedtime stories. Who had laughed at my jokes. Who had hugged me goodnight every evening. Then I remembered Jacob's face when he pulled me from that garage. I remembered the recordings of her planning my death. I remembered 14 years of manipulation and lies. Yes, I said quietly. It means everything. That is why this hurts so much. The officers led her away. Her cries echoed down the hallway, growing fainter and fainter until finally silence. I stood in that examination room with Detective Lopez and Dr. Martinez and felt an infinite emptiness open up inside me. No anger, no relief, just a profound aching sadness that would probably never go away. She was still my daughter, and I just sent her to prison. Detective Lopez touched my shoulder gently. Miss Eleanor, are you all right? No, I said honestly. But I will be. She nodded. Marcus Flynn is in custody. We have all the evidence. The recordings. The financial documents. The forensic evidence. The district attorney says this is one of the strongest cases she has ever seen. They will both face maximum sentences. How long? For attempted murder with premeditation, conspiracy, and fraud. Sarah will likely receive 25 years to life. Marcus probably 15 years minimum. 25 years. Sarah was 26 now. She would not see freedom again until she was past 50. Half her life spent in prison for trying to murder her own mother. Thank you, Detective, I said quietly. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. Eleanor, do you need anything? Water. A moment to sit down. I shook my head. I need to go home. I need to see Jacob. Because Jacob was waiting. Jacob, who had saved my life. Jacob, who had lost his mother today, even though she had been lost to him long before. Jacob, who was my real family now. I will drive you, Detective Lopez offered. We walked out of the medical building into Portland gray morning. The rain had started again. That soft, persistent drizzle that made everything smell clean and new. As we drove away, I looked back once at the building where my daughter had been arrested, where the trap had closed, where justice had been served. It was over. The handcuffs had clicked shut. The Miranda rights had been read. My daughter had been led away in chains, crying my name, begging for mercy she did not deserve. I had done what needed to be done. I had protected Jacob. I had stopped Sarah before she could try again. I had chosen justice over blood, truth over family loyalty. But it hurt. It hurt more than the poison she had fed me, more than the carbon monoxide that had nearly killed me, more than any physical pain I had ever experienced. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal and the conspiracy and the attempted murder, she was still my daughter, the little girl I had raised, the child I had loved with everything I had. And I just watched her get taken away in handcuffs. Detective Lopez drove in silence, understanding that I needed quiet. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the rain. Portland passed by outside. Gray buildings. Gray sky.
Gray streets.
Everything felt gray now. When we pulled up to my house, Jacob was waiting at the window. He saw me get out of the car and ran to the door, pulling it open before I could reach for my keys.
Grandma.
His voice was small.
Scared.
Is it over? I pulled him into my arms and held him tight. Yes, I whispered. It is over. She has been arrested.
You are safe now.
We are both safe. He started crying. Deep, shuddering sobs that shook his whole body. I held him and let him cry, stroking his hair, murmuring reassurances. I am sorry, he kept saying. I am sorry. I am sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, I told him. You saved my life. You did the right thing. You were so brave. We stood like that for a long time in the doorway of our home, while Detective Lopez waited respectfully by her car and Portland rain fell softly around us. Eventually, Jacob pulled back and wiped his eyes.
What happens now?
Now, I said. We figure out how to move forward together. He nodded, then looked past me to where Detective Lopez was getting back in her car. Is she really gone? My mom. Yes, I said gently. She will be in prison for a very long time. Good, he whispered. Then his face crumpled again. Is it bad that I said that? That I think it is good. I pulled him close again. No, sweetheart. It is not bad. She tried to hurt us. She tried to kill me. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to feel however you feel. I loved her, he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I know. I loved her too. How do you stop? That was the question, was it not? How did you stop loving someone who had betrayed you so completely? I do not think you do, I said slowly. I think you just learn to live with it. The love and the hurt, both at the same time. We went inside together, leaving the gray morning behind. Tomorrow there would be more to deal with, prosecutors to meet with, testimony to prepare, a trial to endure. But today we were safe. Today we were together. Today we were alive. And somehow that would have to be enough. 1 year later, May again. And everything was different. I stood in the kitchen of our new house in Northwest Portland. A modest home with big windows and a backyard garden. Nothing like the house where it had all happened. We had moved 6 months ago, and neither of us looked back. Jacob sat at the kitchen table eating cereal, scrolling through something on his laptop. He was 13 now. Taller, voice deeper, wearing new glasses that made him look older. Morning, Grandma, he said. Morning, I replied, pouring coffee. Real coffee. No poison. Just the brew I had always loved. Now safe again. The rental properties sold last October for $8 million. I kept enough to live comfortably and ensure Jacob's future. The rest went into the Eleanor Miller Foundation for Child Protection. funding shelters for abused children, therapy programs, legal aid for families escaping violence. It had been Jacob's idea. We should help other kids like me, he had said, so they do not have to be as scared. Thomas Wright managed the foundation finances. Linda Chin sat on the board. Detective Lopez consulted on safety protocols. In 6 months, we had helped 200 children. Something good from something terrible. Ready for school, I asked. Jacob nodded, closing his laptop. Robotics Club has regionals today. He had discovered a gift for technology. Coding.
Programming.
Building things that amazed his teachers. His robotics team had gone undefeated. Last month, a Portland State professor called to say Jacob was one of the most talented young minds he had encountered. I will never understand what you are building, I admitted. But I am proud of you. He grinned. You just have to drive me there. We had routines now. Breakfast together. I drove him to school. Managed foundation business. Worked in the garden. Evenings we cooked dinner and watched movies. Simple, normal things that felt impossible 18 months ago. We went to therapy every week. Jacob on Tuesdays. Me on Wednesdays. Together on Thursdays with Dr. Sarah Mitchell. At first, neither of us wanted to go. But Dr. Mitchell was patient, and slowly we learned to talk about what happened. Jacob talked about fear. Of losing his mother. Keeping secrets. Guilt over being part of her plan. He had nightmares sometimes, and I would sit with him until he fell back asleep. I talked about betrayal, lost trust, grief of losing my daughter while she was still alive, the anger that flared sometimes, the sadness that never quite left. You are both healing, Dr. Mitchell told us last week. It takes time, but you are getting there. Together. Together. That word meant everything now. Thomas visited monthly for dinner and chess. Linda stopped by occasionally with cookies. Detective Lopez checked in every few months. We had a community who cared. 3 months ago, a letter arrived from Oregon State Penitentiary. Sarah handwriting. My hands shook opening it. Dear Mom, I know you probably do not want to hear from me. I do not deserve forgiveness, but I need to say this. I am sorry for everything. The lies. The poison. The betrayal. Using Jacob. Trying to kill you. I was drowning in debt and desperation. And instead of asking for help, I chose the worst path. I think about what I did every day. I see your face in that garage. Jacob's face when they took me away. I destroyed everything that mattered. I do not expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I loved you. I still do. I just lost sight of what that meant. I hope you and Jacob are happy. Tell him I am sorry. Tell him I love him.
Sarah.
I read it 3 times, then put it in a drawer. I had not responded. Maybe someday I would. Maybe I would visit her in prison. Find some way to offer forgiveness. But not yet. The wounds were still too fresh. Last month the adoption was finalized. Different courthouse. Different judge. A hearing that lasted 20 minutes. When the judge signed the papers making Jacob legally my son, we both cried. You are my son now, I told him, holding him tight. You have always been my grandma, he said. This just makes it official. He chose to keep the name Miller. I like that we match. So now he was Jacob Miller. Legally and permanently my son. Last night while doing homework, Jacob looked up suddenly. Grandma, can I ask you something? Always. He set down his pencil. You trusted my mom. You believed her when she came back. And she tried to kill you. How do you trust anyone again after that? I thought carefully. This was important. Trust is a gift we give, I said slowly. Not because people deserve it, but because we deserve to believe in goodness. Your mother broke that trust. And yes, it hurt. It still hurts. I paused. But you restored it. You showed me that love is real. That courage exists. That people will do the right thing when it matters. You proved trust is worth the risk. His eyes were wet. What if I turn out like her? You will not, I said firmly. You already proved that. When faced with the same choice. Money and lies or love and truth. You chose love. That is who you are. I am scared sometimes that I will mess up. Everyone is scared of that, I told him. But you are one of the bravest, kindest people I know. And I trust you completely. He smiled. I trust you too, Grandma. Now, standing in our kitchen this May morning watching Jacob gather his school things, I felt something I had not felt in a long time.
Peace.
Not happiness exactly. The sadness would never fully go away. But peace. The knowledge we had survived the worst and come through together. I will be in the car, Jacob called. I grabbed my keys and followed. Portland rain was falling. That soft misty drizzle making everything green. I thought about that night 18 months ago. The phone ringing. Sarah's voice. Mom, I need to come home. If I could go back to that moment knowing everything that would happen, would I still answer? Yes. Without hesitation. Because answering brought Jacob into my life.
Showed me what real family means.
Not blood, but choice. Not obligation, but love. I had lost a daughter, but I had gained a son who chose me as much as I chose him. That evening we cooked dinner together. Jacob was teaching me his favorite pasta dish from a video. I kept messing up the timing and he kept laughing. Grandma, you are terrible at this, he said, grinning. I am aware, but I am trying. That is all that matters. We ate at the kitchen table, talking about his competition. Second place. His English assignment. And whether we should get a dog. Maybe not yet. Normal conversation. Normal life. After dinner, we washed dishes side by side. Through the window, I could see rain falling on our garden. On Portland lights glowing in the distance. Jacob was explaining his coding project. Gesturing with soapy hands. Excited and animated. I did not understand half of it, but I loved watching him light up. This was family. This was home. Not the big house with its dark history. Not the properties I had built. Just this. A modest home. A 13-year-old teaching his grandmother to cook. Rain on the windows. Laughter filling the rooms. We had survived the darkness. Found our way to light. Grandma, Jacob said, drying the last plate. Thanks. For what? For everything. For believing me. For keeping me safe. For being my family. I pulled him into a hug. Thank you. For saving my life. For being brave. For being exactly who you are. We settled on the couch with popcorn for movie night. Jacob leaned against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around him as rain drummed softly on the roof. 18 months ago, I had been dying. Poisoned by someone I loved. Trapped in a conspiracy I did not know existed. Now I was alive. Jacob was alive. We were healing. Growing. Building a future together. The past would always be part of us. The scars would always be there. But we had learned to carry them without letting them define us. We had learned that family is not who you are born to. It is who you choose and who chooses you back. We had learned that love is worth the risk even when it hurts. And we had learned that sometimes the worst moments lead us to the people we were always meant to find. I looked down at Jacob, absorbed in the movie. Safe and happy and home. Yes, I thought. I would answer that phone call again. Every single time. Because this, right here,
Right now.
was worth everything. Somewhere in a prison 3 hours away, my daughter was serving her sentence. Maybe thinking about us. Maybe regretting her choices. But right now I had everything that mattered. We were going to be okay. Looking back at this family story, I realized trust is both our greatest strength and our deepest vulnerability. I trusted my daughter completely, and she used that trust to try to kill me. My advice: do not be like me. Do not ignore the warning signs. When Linda said something felt wrong. When Jacob's eyes watched too carefully. When my tea tasted just slightly bitter. I dismissed it all because I wanted to believe in the family story I had imagined. The reconciliation. The second chance. The happy ending. But here is what I learned. Family is not about blood. It is about choice. Jacob chose to save me. Sarah chose greed. And in the end, real family is the one that chooses love over money. Truth over lies. Courage over fear. Some might call what I did revenge. Turning my daughter over to the police. But it was not revenge. It was justice. It was protecting Jacob. It was refusing to let evil win just because it wore a familiar face. Revenge might sound satisfying, but what I felt was only heartbreak. True revenge would have been letting anger consume me. Instead, I chose healing. Life gave me a second chance through Jacob, a boy who reminded me that goodness still exists even in darkness. And if there is one lesson from all this, protect yourself, but do not let betrayal steal your capacity to love. Sarah is in prison. Marcus is in prison. And I am here with Jacob building a new life from the ashes of the old one. We are healing. We are surviving. We are learning that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you are born into. Trust carefully. Love deeply. And never ignore your instincts when something feels wrong, because the person who seems perfect might be the one planning your death. Thank you for walking this journey with me to the very end. I would love to hear from you. If you found yourself in Eleanor's position facing betrayal from someone you loved, what would you do? Your perspective truly matters to me. If this story resonated with you emotionally, please consider subscribing so you do not miss what comes next. A gentle note. While inspired by real themes of family betrayal and trust, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling impact. If this content does not align with your preferences, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better.